Support for Lab Out Loud is provided by the National Science Teachers Association. Find out more at nsta.org. You're listening to Lab Out Loud, Science for the Classroom and Beyond, and today we're taking it to the fields and talking about agriculture.
If you change the word agriculture to something like environmental sustainability or environmental science, all of a sudden the science teachers say, yeah, I would definitely be interested in that type of program, even though it's the exact same thing. So with the next generation science standards, you've all these different topics, and the science teachers were like, wait a minute, I've never thought about tying things that are happening in agriculture to the topics I'm teaching using the next generation science standards.
That's coming up next on Lab Out Loud, but first, I'm your co-host, Dale Basler.
And I'm Brian Bartel. I forgot what I was going to say there for a second.
It sounded like you forgot your name.
I'm Brian.
Well, now that your name has come to mind, let's talk about some other words that come to mind when we say things like agriculture, or let's say environmentalism or environmental science, especially if you're a science teacher. What about companies? What comes to mind when you hear the word Monsanto? What comes to mind when you hear that?
Is this an association game?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that. And I expect the spectrum for what our listeners are thinking about is probably wide. Things from excitement to concerns. Let's talk about that.
So our guest Valerie is here to tell us a little bit more about how all of these things are related to each other.
My name is Valerie Bayes. I work here at Monsanto at our headquarters in St. Louis, Missouri. My title is STEM Engagement Lead, but kind of my background is I'm born and raised in the St. Louis area. I went to University of Missouri-Columbia and majored in biological sciences. I thought that I wanted to go to dental school, and I realized my last semester of undergrad that I was not as passionate about oral health as I once thought. So I'm thinking,
why not?
Well, actually, I went on a dental mission trip to the Dominican Republic, and I kind of had this epiphany moment where I was like, man, I really enjoy teaching people about their oral health as opposed to working with the patients at the bench.
It's better to have those moments early than, halfway into your career. Like, what am I doing?
Yes. Yeah, and dental school is so expensive. So oftentimes when I'm talking with students, I'll say, it's better to know what you don't really like to do just as much as it is to know what you do like to do, because kind of weeding out that decision-making process will, pare down the options that you will enjoy being part of.
Do you know what I'm amazed with dentists is they have so much new technology. I go there and I'm like, oh, what new toy do you have today?
You hope because
they've got they've got these little oral cameras and they have. The funny thing is we work with teachers and sometimes just teaching them how to use two screens, like using an extended screen, is like a mind-blowing experience. But you go to the dentist and they do it all the time.
Oh, sure.
Mine has a second screen right in front of me. Like I can see what's in my mouth. That's awesome, and not at the same time. But
there's even a sense of like engineering too when they do a 3D scan of your tooth, and then they can pivot kind of on CAD design and then create a new crown or things like that. So it's very high tech. It's a cool field, definitely a cool field.
When are we going to walk in? When are we going to walk in and like they're going to strap on like 3D goggles for us and like like a 3D, you'll get like this virtual reality tour of your mouth
into the mouth.
Oh,
oh, maybe you don't want that.
All right. Well,
I think it speaks to every field.
I would definitely prefer that for like a movie or something. A 3D VR movie while you're getting your teeth cleaned
instead of just staring at the ceiling.
Yeah.
So we don't have to engage in conversation. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it speaks to every field having just a lot of new technologies layered in, and yours at Monsanto is the same thing. Agriculture is not, overhauls and a pitchfork anymore, is it?
Oh, no, not at all. Agriculture is highly sophisticated, and I like to tell people ag is STEM. So sometimes there's that debate, like, do we add an A for the arts, or do we add an A for agriculture, or do we just call it hamster because we need humanities and reading in there?
Hamster.
Yeah, and it just keeps evolving, and it's like, no, agriculture is STEM. STEM is so interdisciplinary, and agriculture needs to leverage all those different disciplines in order to solve big problems. And that's what Monsanto is doing. So Monsanto's focused on agriculture, and we help farmers solve problems that come up while they're trying to grow crops. And by using science to figure out what's best and most efficient, to help them do that by, keeping those weeds from stealing the nutrients of the desired crop, and managing those little pesky insects that are devouring their crop, and then using new technologies like what you guys had kind of mentioned, robotics, sensing, things like that, to be fitted for farming equipment really helps to tie all those disciplines together and solve big problems in ag.
What's Monsanto's history? You said their headquarters in St. Louis. Have they always been in St. Louis? And how long have they been around? How'd they get started?
Yeah, so I believe Monsanto was first, so in 1901, I believe. And since Monsanto has gone through kind of many evolutions of itself, but still kept the name. And some would argue that was a bad choice, and some would say, it's misinformation that has brought us to where we are as far as reputation goes. But Monsanto was kind of an interesting company in that they were first kind of a chemical company, and I would describe it as kind of this hodgepodge company where some people were working in animal science and developing solutions there. Some people were creating like new synthetic carpets, and some people were working on different detergents and solutions like that. And then there was a small section of Monsanto that was focused on agriculture. And after many evolutions of like divesting certain companies and things like that, they really decided to focus on agriculture in the end. So though we've gone through kind of these changes since 1901, we kept the name, but we've been kind of different companies since. And so currently Monsanto is focused on agriculture. And I would say for my position as the STEM lead, I'm trying to better understand what tools do teachers need in order to help teach kind of these modern ag concepts in their classroom, or is there something that Monsanto can offer up or help to bridge things like the next generation science standards with agriculture? Because when you look at the standards, I mean, there's so many opportunities to talk about agriculture, and unfortunately, it seems like when you talk about natural selection and evolution, for example, the teacher really wants to focus on dogs or humans or things like that, and we're kind of over here in agriculture saying, wait a minute, we could talk about so many different things in animal science or in plant science, because plants are fascinating.
Well, and I think sometimes they're just underserved in the science classroom because you don't have the ethical issues with experimenting on animals, for one, and you can do a lot with plant experiments, and there's a lot of new models out there that grow fast and you can do quick experiments with. And I think that when we talk about students designing their own experiments and running them and analyzing them, plants could offer quite a bit more than what we could do with other species if you're dealing with an animal kind of a situation like that.
Right. And I think that, the thing that I think is most fascinating about plants is, you plant the seed in the ground, it germinates, it grows up, and it has to adjust to any of the conditions that it's faced in that growing condition. So when it has an insect that starts munching on its roots, it can't just get up and run away because it's being eaten. It has to
not yet.
It has to develop defenses against that insect, or it will perish. So I think that's one of the most fascinating things about plants is that they evolve to whatever condition, environmental condition they are in. Whether it's positioning themselves to get more sunlight or closing themselves up at night. I mean, it's so fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
you're right. There's a lot of opportunities in the class.
Yeah, they have some really cool adaptations that I always like to showcase, and we don't see it as easily sometimes without using some tricky photography. And when you get into phototropisms and thigmotropisms and other things, gravitropism, those kinds of things blow my mind, and I think it's something that's really fascinating for younger students to understand is how they respond to their environment like that as well. Because, hey, they don't have legs. They're not like Groot. We're not going to get up and move. But how do you tackle those environmental concerns there?
Oh, there you go. You could have a Groot Monsanto team up. Do you know who Groot is?
No, what is that?
Oh, Groot now you have homework, Valerie.
Oh, yes. That's from Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a Marvel comic.
Oh, okay. I did see that.
Yeah,
you
probably have seen that movie. On the, he's the tree guy.
That's the tree guy. Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, how did you get connected with Monsanto? What brought you to Monsanto is probably a better question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so after I graduated from Mizzou, I have this degree in biology, and I start working for this data science company that does an analysis of the information that comes back from clinical trials. And that really wasn't for me. I kind of felt like a glorified proofreader. The work wasn't challenging enough, and it didn't really give me an opportunity to build something, because I've always been a builder, even when I was little, getting into things, asking a lot of questions, getting myself into trouble. So I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I think I'll just kind of kick around some time by substitute teaching at a local district. And I loved it. So I went back and got my master's in teaching with a certification in secondary biology. And around that time, I had a friend that was working at Monsanto. And, I said, I don't really know much about Monsanto. I just know that they don't really have a very good reputation, but I'm dangerously curious, so I'll go and check it out. And what they were doing was they were looking for a person to help with their science outreach efforts. So I came in for the interview, and because I have a background in biology and master's in teaching and spent time in the classroom, they were like, "Okay, you're hired. This would be great." And this is circa 2012 or so. And I would say for the first year, we were really doing a lot of, we have these scientists and engineers who are super passionate about what they do. How do we get them to go out into the community and share their stories in like a hands-on, authentic, tangible way? So what kind of experiments can they bring, or how can they share their career path and how people can get involved in them and things like that. And then in 2013, something kind of interesting happened where Monsanto said, this reputation thing really needs to be addressed, and we need to buckle down, and, we sell products to farmers. So we talk to farmers, and we're a publicly traded company, so we talk to our shareholders. And all those people in between, all those consumers, while we don't directly sell anything to them, it's clear that we have not shared our story with them. And we've always kind of defaulted to, the science will speak for itself. Our technologies and innovations are helpful. We don't really need to talk about that with consumers. And so my role really evolved into, the consumers that would really benefit from having access to our scientists and engineers would be teachers, because teachers are lifelong learners. They're open to learning new things or new evidence. Let's focus on teachers in this new way and try and figure out, what are the questions that the teachers have that we aren't doing a very good job of answering. And one of those was access to genetically engineered seeds. So
this is new territory. Was this new territory for Monsanto then, right? Reaching out to education
Well, see, Monsanto, the way that they were involved in education, and this is just me candidly speaking, is that you kind of had a couple of scientists and engineers who were just personally so passionate about going out to their kids' classroom or judging science fairs or mentoring robotics teams, things like that. Personally, that's what they were interested in.
Yeah.
But I would say Monsanto as a company, they were handling education outreach as a way to basically write checks. So, you want to build a school garden, you can apply for this grant through Monsanto Fund. You want to start a first robotics team, you can apply for this grant. And so it was more, I guess the analogy I give is that when my aunt sends me a birthday card with money in it, I care about it. That means a lot. But when my aunt shows up to my birthday dinner with the card with money in it, it means something totally different. And so around that time, we really had to change the way that we were engaging, because you can't just write a check and say, do science or we're a good company or, like us. Instead, you have to say, wait a minute, what are the questions that you have, and how can we help to answer those questions or to provide the resources to answer those questions? And if you need funding, here is this avenue to get funding. So it really took a change of thinking for leadership to know, hey, there is great value in actually showing up to the dinner. We've got to stop with this mindset of, let's just, fund a school garden or something. Like, not only let's fund a school garden, but let's send 3 plant breeders to go talk about plants with that school that won the grant. So it really took all of Monsanto to change the way that they thought about outreach. And that, like I said, one of the kind of biggest things for Monsanto to change was access to genetically engineered seeds. So we were receiving requests from students as young as 7th grade saying, hey, we want access to genetically engineered seeds and conventional seeds just to phenotypically look at them. We just want to grow them and look at them. And it was, I have to tell you, it was really kind of ridiculous, the process that Monsanto had. They were, it was taking 3 months to get back because they had to talk to regulatory, they had to talk to legal. Even for a 7th grader's request, just to grow seeds to look at them. So after the 3 months, you get back to the student and you say, oh, hey, we can provide these to you. And the student's like, hey, my project is already over with. But
that was last
I would
quarter.
be interested.
It's summer.
Yeah, I would be interested next year if possible. And then, by the way, we need you to sign this 10-page material transfer form. Well, I don't know about you, but that does not scream transparency, open.
I can't even get my son to fill out his planner, so yeah.
Sign here,
right,
here,
right.
Initial here.
Right, so what we did was I saw this and I said, oh gosh, we've got to make this a more efficient system. So we developed this 5-lesson module ranging from one, which is just kind of a simple weed simulation where some of your students are the desired crop, some of your students are weeds, and they're competing for resources. The resources are like poker chips or things like that. And so obviously the higher the weed pressure, the more competition, and then you can have the conversation about, hey, these are some of the challenges farmers are actually dealing with out in their field. And then the second, to grow them, the third and fourth is to either crush up the whole seed or grow the plant up and do a leaf tissue sample, and then use lateral flow strips to test for that CP4 gene that's in Roundup Ready products, glyphosate-tolerant products. And then the fifth one is to do PCR testing, polymerase chain reactions. And we have an agreement with our scientists that we can also provide the primers to teachers who are interested in that. So, and then the way that teachers can gain access to this is just going to monsanto.com/STEM, STEM, and instead of signing this really clunky 10-page material transfer form, they simply sign this one-page gift letter that says, hey, we are exchanging educational materials, not dollars. I will use the lesson plan to facilitate learning and these seeds. So it has been really successful. We've taken this to National Science Teachers Conference, National Association of Biology Teachers Conference, FFA, And the response that we get from students and teachers, mostly teachers, is, wait a minute, what? Monsanto is giving their seeds away for educational purposes? Like, this is unheard of. And that's what I want to hear. I want to hear that we are providing something that is valuable to educators to help actually teach what a GMO is. Because if you were to Google it today, I mean, you would see these horrendous pictures of like a tomato with 87 syringes in it.
Yeah.
And really, it's not, first of all, there are no syringes in the process. And it's really not that exciting. It's actually quite boring. Mm-hmm. But
so teachers can make this request anytime at the website?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll put a link in our show notes for that.
Yeah, they just go to the website, and on that website, they'll also see kind of the other resources that we created.
I read something about BioBuilder. So you're working with biology teachers. How do teachers participate in that?
Yeah, so BioBuilder is this really awesome. I just can't speak highly enough about it. It's this awesome teacher professional development curriculum developed by MIT professor Natalie Kudwell. She is a synthetic biologist, and the way that we're involved with them is to host teacher professional development opportunities during the summer where a synthetic biologist teaches the course alongside with a teacher who has used the BioBuilder curriculum. That way you get both kind of the scientific perspective but also the educator's perspective. And then they go on a tour of Monsanto, and we kind of have this roundtable discussion with other disciplines in science. But yeah, BioBuilder is a fantastic resource for teachers to check out. And Dr. Kudwell, Natalie from MIT, is very focused on education and figuring out how do you lower that activation energy to get people to talk about synthetic biology and genetic engineering in a way that makes sense, is not scary or intimidating, but really enriches the biology curriculum if you're kind of looking for something new.
Okay. So you have some of that connection there. Do you have any, I know you have some other partnerships, one most notably with NSTA. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. So about 6 months ago, we entered into a kind of exploratory partnership with NSTA to better understand, why is it that there's this kind of divide between science and agriculture? Because the thing that I was noticing when I would go out to conferences is that the ag teachers would come up to the Monsanto booth and they would be like, hello, we farm, we buy this product, blah, 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 thank you for funding our FFA chapter. And they were just real excited to see us. And the science teachers, the biology and chemistry teachers would come up to the booth and they would say, hey, we kind of understand your science and technology, but we've got some questions about your business practices. And we love those questions. We're happy to answer those questions. And then the environmental science teachers would, well, when they did come up to the booth, they were viscerally upset.
They'd be across the hall scowling, or no?
Actually, yeah. So they would not even come up to the booth. They would just kind of pass by and shake their head in disgust and keep walking. And, for me, I'm like, please come over here. Like, ask your questions. Like, let's figure out, what's going on here. But so with NSTA,
it sounds like you're being really upfront about some of the concerns in the past. Like, if there are concerns, talk to us. Is that right? Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, we want to make ourselves available. And I know that anytime I go out to a conference or, some sort of speaking engagement, I say, truly, if I don't know the answer, I will find the answer. So I will be getting your email address because I don't want you to walk away from here thinking that I wasn't listening. So, and I've done that where I've said, here's this napkin, write your email address on it, and then I'll get back to them, after sending emails throughout the company to figure out, whatever their question is. Like, we get a lot of questions about bees and honeybee health, and we actually have an apiary specialist that works at Monsanto. His name is Jerry Hayes. And so anytime I get those questions, I go to Jerry and I say, hey, this teacher has a question about colony collapse disorder or something like that. And Jerry is so awesome. He'll say, well, I could email them back, but I'd rather just talk to them on the phone and really like have a conversation with them. So he'll email them, and then they'll end up getting on a phone call, and then he'll Skype into the classroom and talk about honeybees and have an observation hive with them. I mean, we really try to make the connections authentic and totally different than the way that Monsanto would have engaged in the past.
Do you have anywhere where you can connect with a scientist like that? I mean, obviously someone's reaching out and then reaching back. But I'm thinking like, maybe have like a list of people that would be approachable and connecting with the classroom via Skype or Hangouts or something like that, and having some real world connections.
Yeah, definitely. So you can always email STEM outreach let me think about this. STEM outreach.
We'll have it in the show notes.
I can't. Yeah, show notes. I'll put it there. I can't think of it off the top of my head. So that's like our general STEM inbox. If you email that, it actually goes to me, and then I can distribute it to the appropriate speaker that I think would be best. But we also have another platform that we've been engaging with which is called Nepris, and it's kind of this online learning platform where they are the conduit between the teacher's request, so hey, we want to know more about GMOs, or hey, we want to know about water quality and conservation, or something like that, and then the industry expert, so then they use LinkedIn and other modes to find who the best speaker would be, and then link them up, and then the STEM professional just, from the convenience of their desk, turns on their camera and then interacts with the students. The students ask questions. There's like a moderator, and then that engagement is archived and then tied to certain keywords like GMO, water, etc. And then other teachers who are looking for similar topics can search for those key terms, and then those archived experiences can come back up. So you can either replay something that someone had already recorded, or you can put in for a new experience. But yeah, that's called Nepris, Nepris. And I'm sorry, I never finished my thought about NSTA, and it's just because I'm so excited. I've got so many things to talk about. But so what we were doing with NSTA is we said, okay, can we get some of the professors from the College of Education teaching science methodology to pre-service science teachers, and some of the professors from the College of Agriculture who are teaching pre-service ag teachers to get in the same room and kind of talk about what, is there a verbiage difference? Like, is there a standard difference? Like, how come we're not talking to each other even though we're all trying to teach teachers? And what was interesting was, out of the 6 or so universities that came, in that one university, professors from 2 different colleges had no idea who each other were. And they were like, wow, had I known that you're doing this really cool interactive sheep farm experience, I would have brought my science teachers over there. And so it was really cool to see them sharing best practices and how they, set up labs or do certain things. And some of the takeaways from those meetings that we had were that when we in agriculture say agriculture, it actually can be kind of a turnoff to people, specifically science teachers, because they say, that's what the ag teacher does, or that's, not my field. I teach science. And what's interesting is if you change the word agriculture to something like environmental sustainability or environmental science or something like that, all of a sudden the science teachers say, oh, well, if it were called that, yeah, I would definitely be interested in that type of program.
What's in a name?
Even though it's the exact same thing. So that was really interesting. And the other takeaway was with the next generation science standards, you've got inheritance of traits and ecosystems and human sustainability and all these different topics. And what was interesting was that the ag teachers said, though we don't use next generation science standards to teach our concepts, we already cover weather and climate and all these things. And the science teachers were like, wait a minute, I've never thought about tying things that are happening in agriculture to the topics I'm teaching in using the next generation science standards. This is really fascinating. And in fact, there was one professor who kind of like sits back in his chair, throws his hands behind his head and says, "Oh my gosh, agriculture. It's like so important." and all the
like gotta have those
every day we have meals.
Yeah. And then all the ag folks in the room kind of chuckled, and they were like, yeah, that's exactly why I got involved in this in the first place. You know, like I wanted to figure out how do you make the production of food, fuel, and fiber more sustainable, or, you know, to solve problems in those fields. And so it was a fantastic experience. And the next steps on that are to figure out, you know, how can agriculture, so whether it's Monsanto or other companies, help to fund some sort of grant or partnership with universities to help bridge the College of Ag with the College of Education and get some of those modern ag concepts into kind of like just the thinking of science teachers, and saying, oh, wait, if I'm going to talk about natural selection, maybe I could talk about weed science. Or, you know, and I know I could go over to the College of Ag and tap on the expertise of them to help write this lesson plan. So those are kind of next steps. We just wrapped up our last meeting beginning of or middle of January. So yeah, I'm excited to see what comes of that.
Excellent. Well, the website is monsanto.com/stem. Head on over there for so many of the things you're talking about, including those seeds. And it's nice to start, you know, Brian and I are up here in the north, so
I'm staring at white right now.
Yeah, thinking about planting season keeps our minds on things getting green again. That's a really positive thing. Valerie, thanks so much for talking to us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, and I'm happy to answer any questions people have. My email will be in the meeting notes.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks much.
All right, thank you.
For links and other information related to this episode, visit laboutloud.com. You can send us your questions and comments at laboutloud.com/contact.
If you enjoyed the show, make sure you've subscribed on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, or your favorite podcasting platform. And if you really enjoyed it, consider leaving us a rating or a review. Your feedback helps others find our show.
Until next time, I'm Dale Basler.
And I'm Brian Bartel.